All right, this is Mike Arrington from TechCrunch. I am here with Attorney General candidate Chris Kelly.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Thank you for coming by our office to talk with us on video a little bit about your campaign.
Glad to sit with you on a glorious day out here. It's a nice day.
Yeah.
Good day to be outside.
So, you until 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, you were full-time at Facebook as the Chief Privacy Officer. When did you start at Facebook?
So I started at Facebook in September of 2005. We were about 25 people.
Very early on.
2.5 million users.
Yeah.
And now we're over 1,000 people and 250 million users. So it's been a pretty good growth rate.
And you're on a leave of absence now?
I'm on a leave of absence now.
Does that mean your stock options stop vesting, or?
So or
has it been 4 years?
I'm not commenting on the particulars of these matters, but I've been working hard.
How much
so
stock?
I'm still consulting for the company.
You're still okay.
I'm still consulting.
And how much stock did you sell on the recent $100 million transaction?
So again,
we agreed not to discuss
not going to comment on
the
particulars of these things, but I'm happy to be at the company for as long as I've been.
I want to get to Facebook a little bit more later. Not your net worth, but just talk about some of the product issues at Facebook. But let's start with your background and your politics. Can you just tell us a little bit about who you are?
So I grew up in San Jose. We moved to San Jose in 1977, before it was Silicon Valley, really, just when the chip revolution was starting. And I grew up, went to high school at Bellarmine down in San Jose and got some good Jesuit education. Spent my first 2 years in college at Berkeley. Decided that it was too big and too close to home. I needed to see the rest of the world, but I knew that the Bay Area would be my home. So I headed off to Georgetown, got some more Jesuit education in, started a PhD program in political theory of all things at Yale after I graduated from there, and then became enamored of a fascinating, young, obscure Southern governor named Bill Clinton. I dropped out of grad school to go to work for. Ended up working for Clinton for 3 years. Had worked on 100,000 cops, community police on the streets, and AmeriCorps, among other programs, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act reauthorization. I worked with now Los Angeles School Superintendent Ray Cortines when he was head of the Intergovernmental Interagency Group at Education, and had a wonderful experience in Washington. But decided I needed to go back to school, and I went to law school at Harvard. And then came out here.
How many degrees do you have?
I've got three.
Georgetown,
degrees.
Yale was.
I took a master's degree at Yale.
And then a Harvard law degree.
And then a law degree from Harvard in '97, and then came back out here, clerked for a federal judge in San Diego for a year, and then joined our fellow alma mater, Wilson Sonsini, in Palo Alto.
Yeah, we both worked at Wilson Sonsini. What years were you there?
So I was there '98 and '99.
Yeah, so we overlapped a little bit,
Yep.
but never had the pleasure to work with you.
Yep.
So is it fair to characterize you as a liberal, tax and spend Democrat then?
I wouldn't say that. I think that I've got a healthy appreciation for government and what it can do, but I want to make it more effective and more efficient. I think that tax dollars are hard to come by these days, and we obviously need to have a great deal of government reform. Make sure that the government works for people again.
Are we taxed too high or too low today?
So I think that it's hard to say right now. With the tax makeup that we have is a confusing one, and one that obviously doesn't work. I mean, it's one of the reasons that
I'd pay more taxes if our tax system was simpler.
And also it's the ability to know that the money's going to good purposes, and that's one of the things that we have to work on and convince people over time that the government can spend their money effectively. There's a fundamental sort of breaking of faith with the people that is a lot of the reaction to government. You saw in the rejection of Props 1A through 1E in the last ballot, people expect Sacramento to actually do its job, to make hard decisions and to stick with them and to get a budget done. That's one of the things that I want to see out of this race, and I think one of the things that will be a sleeper issue for some time, but will be a big deal at the end, is government reform, and who's going to most effectively guide, be the best lawyer for the people in the government reform that's coming, because folks are really, really angry and really, looking for something different.
So you're actually looking forward to being the Attorney General. It's not just a stepping stone to a race for president, governor, or senator?
Nope. I think it's a great job. I think it's one of the best jobs in politics, and particularly at this period in the state's history. I think it's likely that we're going to have a constitutional convention in 2011. And to be the chief lawyer for the people in that convention would be very, very exciting, and sort of a surprising, practical way to apply my time working in early American political thought and political theory and constitutional theory.
So it seems like one of the things that attorney generals from various states do to get press is attack social networks. As chief privacy officer of Facebook, you've had to deal with negotiations with attorneys general. I'm sure MySpace has had those issues for even longer. Recently, we saw your future colleague, although he'll be leaving office as you're entering, Henry McMaster, the Attorney General of South Carolina, go on a suicide mission against Craigslist. How are you going to deal with that?
Well, it's one of the things that obviously the attorneys general across the nation have been focused on is internet safety over the years. And at Facebook, we've had an extraordinarily responsible record of actually building a safer and more trusted internet. And that's made our relationship with the attorneys general much better than with a lot of other sites. And I think that major sites across the net have been focused on this issue and are trying to deal with it in a responsible way. I hope that bringing additional knowledge from both sides of the fence on this will help the attorneys general across the nation in assisting companies and consumers across the country in having a safer internet experience. So I think that having been on this side of the table and representing the largest social network in the world, will stand me in good stead in providing input on how we build a safer, more trusted internet.
So that's great. But let's get to a real answer. Like, is it BS that the AGs have gone after social networks to the extent they have? Have they overblown issues to get press?
So there's a real concern out there about safety on the internet, and obviously companies can't prevent everything from going wrong online, just as states and police departments don't prevent every crime in communities. And so, we've worked very productively with responsible attorneys general and stayed focused on these issues. They've understood when we've engaged in productive dialogue that we can't stop everything bad from happening. I think we've got to a very good place working with Attorney General Cooper, Attorney General Blumenthal, with a variety of people from across the nation, Attorney General Cuomo, to make responsible improvements on the way that online safety works.
I'm going to try this one more time. You're saying some great things, and it's important, but do you think that attorneys generals, and not just McMaster, but, who was the guy in New York? Spitzer. You think occasionally they go after online sites and other sites just because it's such a huge press hit for them? And sometimes they get more than their share of negative attention.
I think that sometimes there are misunderstandings about what's going on and how responsible companies are. I also think that not every company has always been responsible about this, and so that there are some legitimate targets out there, and there's some people who engage in shady behavior online. And I think it's entirely.
You're talking about Craigslist now?
No, of course not.
Do you plan on going after Craigslist? Is your first duty in office?
Obviously not something that I'm focused on.
I'm not going to get you to comment directly on McMaster at all, am I?
Probably not.
All right, we'll leave that. We'll let that one go for now. Let's go back to the campaign. How much money do you need to raise to become Attorney General of California?
So it's hard to say for sure. The candidates last time raised about $4 or $5 million, and I think that's what it's going to take, to be competitive. And but I plan to raise more than that. I think that getting our message out. Obviously, I actually come to this in an advantage. By the time of the June 2010 primary, looks like about a third of the state of California is going to be on Facebook. Everybody else in this race comes from a relatively small base. No one's going to know exactly what they've done in their communities, and people will know what I've done in my community because they'll be experiencing it on a day-to-day basis. The change in how connected people are online and the updates that they get from their family and friends every day, I think has left people with a very good impression of Facebook and what it does for them. It's why people keep returning and why the site continues to grow quite rapidly. So that's where I start from in terms of what people are going to think about my record. That's a good place to start from. So, we're going to have a robust online campaign. We've really just, as you mentioned, we've really just started in the past, past 3 weeks for
your 39th birthday.
Exactly.
Your wife sent out an email asking for, it was brilliant, asking for $39 donations for your 39th birthday. It was your 39th. You just turned 39.
Yeah, I just turned 39.
Yeah. And did that get some donations?
It went extraordinarily well.
Okay, great. And also, I gave you a Facebook gift, the Britney Spears, what was it, the man?
I forget what it was. It was a Britney Spears gift, which I appreciated, and I hope you appreciated my commentary and response.
I did. I appreciated that you didn't delete it immediately because you're trying to run a serious campaign, and I'm doing almost everything I can to undermine that. So
got a lot of comments.
I think that there's room for humor in every serious campaign.
Moving away from humor, I want to talk about Holocaust denial on Facebook, an issue that you and I have been completely at opposite ends of the spectrum on. A tiny bit of background on Facebook and other sites on the internet. Some among other hate groups, some Holocaust denial groups have popped up on Facebook and got a lot of press. And some people, including me, suggested that the right thing for Facebook to do, under its own sort of terms of service, nothing else affecting their decision, was to just delete these groups. Right. Facebook decided not to delete these groups wholesale. Can you explain sort of what went behind the decision on that?
So the direct commentary on whether or not a historical event happened is not something that we would generally take action over. Hate speech we do regularly take action over and are happy to. It's one of the things that it was important to us from the beginning, and I helped set up these policies, that hate speech directed at individuals, directed at groups, we take down. And obviously we can't, like I was saying before, we can't prevent bad people from doing bad things initially. Whenever the mentioning of the Holocaust veers into any direct expression of hatred, we take it down, and we take action against the individuals. We think that not having a blanket policy of taking down, the mere assertion of historical falsity is of ahistorical falsity. It allows for the identification of those who are expressing hatred, and for more speech to step into the breach and to attack their falsehoods. We think that that's the best policy to pursue, but when it veers into hate speech, and that's one of the things that's kind of gotten lost in some of the online debate, we do take it down. And
you guys clearly have taken down a lot of hateful content. I think the point of disagreement between me and some others and Facebook, with you as somewhat of a spokesperson on this issue, in fact, I assume this was, your chief privacy officer, it wouldn't go through you, but you were definitely one of the decision makers in the company, right, as an executive.
I participated in the discussions on this, absolutely.
The point of disagreement seems to be, is the denial of the Holocaust in itself hate speech? Because the only reason for anyone to deny the Holocaust is because they have a dislike of the Jewish race. And that's, do we agree that's the point of disagreement?
And I think that the instant that takes some further expression, we've been more than happy to take that content down. And to suspend the accounts of the people who perpetrate it. And so that's an important fact as well. We've always had a content policy based on identity and based on responsibility for what you post. You'll not just have, it's not just a slap on the wrist, it's not just some anonymous post goes up and you can just do it again. Your account gets taken down, and you've lost the ability to re-register from that email address. Now, of course, there are attempts and some attempts always going on, and there's a lot of hate in the world. And one of the things that we need to know is that there is that much hate in the world, so that we can speak out against it.
One last question on this, and I'll move on, because you've made yourself very clear. Do you personally think that anyone that denies the Holocaust, do you feel that if somebody does deny the Holocaust, that they might have some prejudice issues against it?
Absolutely. Okay. No question about it. And I've made that clear in my public statements.
Okay. You get the job. What's next? What are you going to do to make the state a better place, a safer place?
I think we need to stay focused on a few issues. I think that crime is, as the chief law enforcement officer, crime is going to be the most important issue, and that we need to have a strategic plan in conjunction.
Can you deal with the noise issue across the street?
I'm
Somebody's
doing.
jackhammering.
I suppose we can dispatch
Like a police force.
the troops. So the unfortunately the highway patrol and the police and the local police don't report to the attorney general.
Can we
so
change
I won't
that?
Have the power. I suppose we could.
Because I have your cell phone number, and if say you took care.
See,
Nice.
There's the ability to deal with these things in real time.
Back to crime.
Okay, so we need a strategic plan to reduce crime across the state, and obviously there have been some great steps in policing that have taken place over the last 20 years, and in Los Angeles, and particularly Bill Bratton, the police chief down there, has been a symbol for how to do these things better across the nation. You deploy technology so that you understand better where crime is occurring, where hotspots are happening, and how you break it up. But we also need a comprehensive 58-county prosecution strategy to make sure that the right crimes are prosecuted, and that we make sure that the people who are perpetrating most of the crime end up in jail. That we effectively enforce our 3 strikes laws. That we separate those who can't conform their conduct to decent social norms from the community, and it's hard sometimes to say that, and that sometimes people's compassion overwhelms reason in these concepts, but it's really important that we communicate to criminals, and that we communicate to society as a whole that we're going to take crime seriously, we're going to work to reduce it, and I want to be crystal clear with the voters of the state of California about that.
Does that mean there'll be more people in prison when you leave office than when you enter?
I hope not, because what I want to do is do prison reform from the front end, that you improve the educational system, and obviously I won't have direct experience over that, although right now I've served for 5 years now on the board of the San Francisco 49ers Academy in East Palo Alto, trying to take kids who are very much at risk and keep them on an educational path to ensure that they that they don't veer off into the criminal justice system. What we can't do is have prison reform on the back end by setting an artificial target of inmate reduction, which is what Sacramento is doing right now. So the proposal is to reduce the state prison population by 15%, effectively by fiat. Either by pushing them down into local jails to insecure release plans, when what you're going to get is those people, there's a 70% recidivism rate. The people are going to come right back. You're not even going to actually achieve the cost savings. There are going to be hundreds of thousands of additional crimes committed. And you just end up in a worse state all around. We need to think about how we handle things on the front end with additional diversionary options for first-time offenders, getting rid of mandatory minimums for first-time offenders, allowing more flexibility if it's your first experience with the criminal justice system. But if you come back repeatedly, you should eventually be put away.
You for or against the death penalty?
I'm for the death penalty. My first instinct, actually, when I was growing up, was to be against it. I had a sort of philosophical bent. I questioned whether the state had a legitimate interest in putting a citizen to death. And the case that changed my mind on that was the Polly Klaus case, and Richard Allen Davis. And he was tried in San Jose when I was a teenager. Yeah. And I had to ask myself, was there a situation in which someone has so utterly forfeited their right to live? And my answer was yes. From there, it depends on how you administer it well, and what I say to my friends who are militantly opposed to the death penalty. The question, first of all, is there ever a circumstance in which killing is justified? And I think that there are circumstances in which killing is justified, even by the state. And then from there, the question is it administered well? In a different state with a different system, California's law in special circumstances is very clear. It's very clean cut. There have been 3 reviews of the death penalty in the last 10 years, including in the last major review, a look at every file of the more than 650 inmates who are on death row in California. There are no credible claims of innocence in the California system right now among death row inmates. And it doesn't mean that I close my mind to if that ever got presented to me again. One of those cases, if there were new evidence, I believe deeply in DNA testing and in making, especially to capital defendants, availability of great legal resources, of great technical resources to give them the chance to prove that they didn't commit the crime. But at the end of the day, if they did it, I'm comfortable with the death penalty.
Legal immigration?
Well, I think we need comprehensive immigration reform. We have to make sure that there's no way that we're going to be able to, deport everyone who's in the country illegally. And the vast majority, probably
Couldn't we deport the ones in California to Nevada or Oregon or something?
Well, no.
Is that illegal?
There would be some issues there. I think that we need to, first of all, appreciate the fact that most people who are illegal immigrants in California, that's the only crime that they've committed. They have committed the crime of illegal, but they are very productive members of society. And we have to embrace that fact and understand it. Most of them pay taxes through payroll systems, through a number
sales
of
tax,
sales tax, exactly. Now, if somebody steps over the line and has an interaction with the criminal justice system, that's the point at which we should be looking at deporting.
Well, okay, but my housekeeper, who I believe is legal, is legal, especially on record. I believe she goes back to Mexico every year and then comes right back. She flies down and then she uses coyotes to come back over the border. I've heard, or maybe it was her friend. I forgot. But don't come after me for this. But do you think we need to find a way to shut down the border, or do you think that having some porousness is okay?
Well, I actually don't think that the porousness is good. I think that a state, a country needs to be able to control its borders. We need to do a better job than we've done. But the ultimate way to address this issue is to have economic development, that strong in the state, that's very focused, but also we need to make sure that the Mexican economy, once they get through this incredibly difficult time with the drug war that's going on down there, which is spilling over our borders, and I'm very concerned about, we need to make sure that they end up having productive jobs down there too. That's the ultimate route.
Because Canadians aren't flooding the border. If we can get their economy, help them get their economy straightened out, it might help.
And I think that over time, and that's productive for California too. It's not an either or choice at the end of the day. That we can grow and have a high skill, high wage strategy, which has always been the California approach and has always been the U.S. approach. Whereas Mexico over time initially will have core manufacturing, which is lower skill and lower wage, but over time they'll have the chance to build up that economy as well. And that's good for us. That avoids the problems of illegal immigration. Again, what we need more than anything else are comprehensive strategies to think about these things and not sort of sloganeering and sound bites.
Legalization of drug use. I've heard it's one of the pillars of your campaign is to legalize marijuana use.
I don't think that's.
No? Is that incorrect?
I don't think that's part of my campaign. What I've said about medical marijuana is that it's been part of state law for almost 10 years now, and we haven't developed an effective regulatory system around that yet. We just had the lifting of the threat of federal prosecution by the Attorney General of the United States. He's made it clear that for clubs and individuals who are in compliance with California law on medical marijuana, that he will not prosecute them.
Yeah.
I think this is a great opportunity to see what kind of regulatory system we can develop. LA has had to aggressively revisit their regulatory system, which was inadequate and had all sorts of loopholes in it, and they're working on that right now. Oakland has recently introduced taxes on medical marijuana. I want to see how these things develop before we have a debate about full legalization and a discussion about full legalization.
So you've privately off record promised me that if you become Attorney General, what?
I'm waiting to hear what you've imagined that I said.
If I get any kind of legal trouble with police, like, you're going to just clear that up right away. So I just want on the record for you to state that, like, if TechCrunch endorses you, the Attorney General candidate of California, that I will have, for the time you're in office, will have no legal issues whatsoever.
As you know, I cannot promise that, and I would not promise that even if I could.
All right,
but I like you very much, and I promise that you will get a full and fair hearing and all of the constitutional rights to which you are entitled.
And then the last thing is, clearly you're going to run for president at some point. Your chief of staff is very nervous right now. You've also promised me privately a cabinet position or Supreme Court, and I do have a law degree, so I think I'm qualified, more qualified than some sitting justices. Is that something you're willing to sort of?
Well, as we've discussed, I'm willing to look at you and some other candidates who have law degrees for a variety of roles.
Oh, that sounds like a yes. I mean, a minor cabinet position, like what agriculture. There's a whole bunch of them that no one even knows what they are. Right?
I was going to say, if you continue to develop your skills over the next 20 years, I will introduce you to whoever is the president at that point, and we'll see what we can do for you.
Sounds like a promise to me. Chris, thanks very much. Good luck with the campaign. Anything else you want to say to the TechCrunch readers before we go?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you very much, Mike, for having me, and thank you to the TechCrunch readers for their loyal support of Facebook, and I hope of me in this race. I think that we have a great opportunity to change the state and make the state and the world a better place, and I need your help.
Of course, if it doesn't work out, you still have your job at Facebook too, right?
There's a lot of possibilities for Facebook that are developing from here, so it would be a wonderful place. It's been very hard to leave.
Yeah. You've
It's
watched that company grow from, like you said, 25 employees to whatever it is now, 1,000 or
just a
900.
couple of blocks from here on Emerson Street.
Yeah.
Was where I wandered in, and I met Mark Zuckerberg. And,
randomly, or was it a scheduled interview?
We had some common friends, and were introduced, and we hit it off. And I became the first general counsel of the company, and I gave that role up to focus more on privacy and on the what we were going to do with data and how we were going to take things in a different direction and give people more control over their information.
Good luck with the campaign, seriously.
Thank you very much,
and we're clearly endorsing you, especially with the cabinet position promise. And I look forward to watching this unravel. I'm sorry, I didn't mean unravel. Watching this develop over the next, basically the next year is when all the action's going to occur.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Sorry, so just let's do a sound test. So,
Okay.
I'm sorry, what's your favorite blog?
TechCrunch.